All right, so you got this dead animal that you're going to investigate, and you want to submit it to us so we can see why it died. You want to get that animal, and you want to get it to the lab without contaminating yourself, and without contaminating me or Joe or Ashley or John. So I brought this raccoon surrogate with me from my daughter's collection when she was younger. This one's got a really good tail for loading up with blood and splattering around. And I'm going to set it here on the table in a normal death posture that you would encounter in the field. You want to use a bag that's appropriate to the size of the specimen. So we have a lot of different size bags available. This one we call our raccoon head size bag because we usually put raccoon heads in it. The bags that we use for CWD heads, for deer heads, are these 12 by 8 by 30. And these are also a good size for picking up raccoons or raccoon-sized critters. So the first thing you want to do is put on a pair of gloves. And you're all going to get a chance to try this, putting gloves on and off when we do our little exercise later. And I'll be watching you all like a hawk to point out any kind of things you may have mistaken. This, take it off the watch is new for me. And I've just been reusing these bags, so it's not nicely folded, so I didn't want to waste them. So you take your bag, and the easiest way to do this is, well, you see these guys that have dogs, and then they pick up their dog's poop with like a grocery bag or a little bag. It's the same idea. Just kind of visualize the animal as a large dog poop. Put your arms inside the bag, and kind of pick up the animal. And if the tail's loose, you want to kind of grab it through the bag and, you know, control it so it doesn't splatter up into your face. And then you're going to just bring the bag around the specimen, and you're going to let the weight of the specimen kind of pull it down. And this surrogate is filled with polyester and not regular guts like a raccoon, so it's a lot lighter. So gravity's not helping me out too much in this case. So you bring it up. So now the outside of the bag was formerly the inside where you had your hands, so that part is uncontaminated. And the cheapest, easiest way to close the bag like this, if you've got enough space, and this is plenty of space, is to twist it and tie an overhand knot. Then you set them down, take your gloves off. You put your gloves right on top there like that. Take another similar bag and do the same thing.
With a new set of gloves?
You don't need a new set of gloves for the next one, because you're pretty clean now already. And you're still giving yourself the same protection that the dog owners do against the poop. And I wouldn't want to touch dog poop's like my least favorite poop. I would never want to touch dog poop like very much. And then you do the same thing. Now you got to be mindful if it's an animal that's been shot or it's on the side of the road. It could have some compound fractures, some bone fragments sticking through. When you're, picking it up initially, or even with the second bag, you want to be a little bit ginger. So if you feel anything that feels like it's going to come through, just stop. Or if you see that automatically, then you want to wear a heavier pair of gloves, like a leather pair of gloves, instead of the latex ones while you're doing that. So that's the way you bag up specimens. The easiest way to close them is with an overhand knot. Other methods include a zip tie, which isn't really as good, but I see a lot of folks in the field like to use zip ties. Another good way to do it is with duct tape. And you certainly, well, we've got different size bags. We've got these really large bags here that we use for deer. This is a 4 by 8 bag, 6 mil. You can put a whole deer carcass in here. It's a 2-person job generally. I've done it myself once. It's very tricky and harder than it sounds. And actually, I'll demonstrate it on a smaller scale how the best way to do that. Let's pretend this is your dead deer, and we're going to pretend that this is that giant bag. What you want to do is take the bag and fold it back on itself to half its length. And you lay that down with the folded edge next to the deer carcass. You're going to have gloves on, and you're going to just slowly kind of grab the carcass, kind of try to push it in over the lip, trying to get it inside a little bit. I'm making it look real easy here because it's hard to do, but you can do it. And once you get it in past there, you can start to bring the outside of the bag over. The weight of the deer will hold this, And you can bring this around. And that 6 mil bag is really hard to tie a knot in. So what we generally tell people to do is twist it. You can get a good twist on it. Use some duct tape. Wrap it around 3 times, and then fold this twist over, and then wrap it around that. And that'll give you a pretty good leak-proof seal. And then it would go inside of a black body bag like this. If you had to drag it any distance, this gives you some abrasion resistance. You can usually, most gear will fit inside of these. Sometimes you have to cut the legs open before you put them in that bag. And these have handles on them, so you can drag them around. 2 people can carry them, etc. We have a good supply of these in the lab if you want some. Alternatively, use one of those blue mortar mixing bins that we have. They're just like a little deer stretcher, and they contain any fluids that might leak out, so you don't contaminate the truck. What we worry about with deer carcasses, certainly if it's got chronic wasting disease, the prions that cause chronic wasting disease, we don't want to get them on anything, on the trucks or anything, because it's very difficult to inactivate those. We can use straight bleach from the bottle. It's a 1-hour contact time. It's not really good for your respiratory system to be using that. It's kind of corrosive. Sodium hydroxide, 2-normal, which we use in the lab sometimes. It's a very slippery base. Same thing, 1-hour contact time. Or you can burn it for 1 hour at 1800 degrees. And we've had some problems trying to disinfect the trucks with that method. In the end, the fleet guys are pretty upset. So next I'm going to talk about putting the packages in if you're going to ship them to us. Region 4, you guys typically just drop stuff off, but most people in the other regions are shipping things. So this isn't that interesting to you guys, so I'll go through it pretty quickly. I know we have one Region 3 person. Region 3 usually brings stuff up here in person too. So you've got your, where'd my raccoon go? You've got your specimens, and you want to put it in the cooler. So the first thing, this is a plastic cooler inside a cardboard box. These coolers are rigid. We also have styrofoam coolers inside boxes, and I've got a couple here in our truck that you're welcome to take, and I think Cornell probably brought some smaller ones with him. Maybe, maybe not, but I definitely got some larger ones that are available. The rigid ones like this, the picnic coolers, are really nice because they're crush proof. We put them in the box because UPS charges us $7 every time we ship a cooler without a box. So I got these custom made boxes that fit this cooler. They cost $7 each. So the first time we use them, we recoup our money, and every time we reuse them after that, we're just like making money. Money is rolling in. I'm expecting accommodation from the governor soon on this idea. So the first thing you want to do is take one of these absorbent pads that we use for CWD heads. You can use these for anything. You could, if this was a real messy carcass, you could have put it between the bags and bagged over it to collect any juice that may come out. When I order these bags, I order them from Zeke down at All American Poly, and I tell him the size and the mill, and then I specify leak proof. And he goes, yeah, okay, leak proof. And you know he's just laughing at me because there's no such thing as a leak proof bag. Especially if you put something in the freezer, it gets a little brittle. You got little toenails and talons and beaks poking through. So eventually all bags are going to leak. So you want to keep that in mind. So you line the inside of the bottom of the cooler with an absorbent pad. That'll collect any juice that comes out. Put your specimen in there. And then you want to put enough ice packs in there that are going to keep that animal cool. Now bear in mind, if it's you just shoot an animal, if you shoot a raccoon and you bag it up, it's like 100, 101 degrees depending on what was going on with that raccoon. And you put them in here with 2 of these ice packs, these are going to be overwhelmed in no time inside this cooler. So be liberal with the ice packs. You want to use these blue ice packs, the hard-sided ones work excellent also. We'll send everything you ship to us, we'll send right back to you. We'll disinfect it and send it right back to you. Another option is 2-liter soda bottles with water in them in the freezer. That works pretty well. The last thing you want to use as a last resort are ice cubes in like a Ziploc bag, because when that comes in, it's going to be just bags of water and the things will have leaked. And we've actually had cases where, not DEC people, but people, the general public, ships up in, it's just like a squirrel floating in a bunch of water, not even in a bag. One time somebody from New York City took a little passerine bird, I forget what species it was, but it was small. And they just put it in a legal envelope like you'd mail a bill in, and they put it in the mail. And then it came by U.S. mail. It was in the mailbox, and it was this big brown stain. And I think it went through one of those sorting machines and got all squished. So you want to be smarter than that person. It shouldn't be too hard. So you want to put enough ice packs in there to bring the temperature of the animal down if it's hot. Another option is to put it in the cooler or the freezer to bring the temperature down in there. You know, a refrigerator or a freezer to bring the temperature down there before you ship it. Refrigeration versus freezing. Mike and I were just talking about this the other day, as a matter of fact. If you got an animal in the summer, this time of year, and you see a lot of maggots on it, just freeze it. Unless you're driving it directly to the lab. So those maggots are going to keep working. They're going to keep working in here, even in the cooler. They kind of create their own microclimate. We've had instances in the lab where we've had deer come in and, you know, they had maggots on them and we couldn't get to them that day. We had it the next day. The next day come in, it's just a mass of maggots, and they take my gloved hand and stick it down in there, and it's just hot. They make their own microclimate, and it's really cool because they're like moving around. You can feel it like through the gloves, like a little massage. I'm sorry that you guys don't get to experience that. But if you transfer to the wildlife health unit, John's probably excited. So you want to make sure you've got enough equipment on there. You're going to have some kind of specimen tag to identify the specimen, especially if you've got more than one specimen in there and they're from two different places and they might be the same species. You know, we can tell apart like a gray squirrel and a red squirrel, but if it's the same species, we might not be able to tell which one's from which, and that happens more than you might think. These are the old style cards. This one says use the hopper. Can you see that? This is subliminal. The hopper is what we call that electronic submission form. Submission site. That's what we call it internally amongst ourselves. If you're cool, you call it the hopper. You guys, someday you might be able to call it the hopper. So that comes through automatically. You fill out all the information. And the great thing about that is, in addition to saving my typing finger, because I only have the one, mostly it's actually been Ashley's been typing them all in, is we don't have to worry about any transcribing errors or editing. I mean, we've had people log stuff in before, and they'd see this long history, and they give it the Reader's Digest treatment, and they'd kind of boil it down to what they thought was the essence, and that's what would go in the database. But I really want to know exactly what you guys put in there, because there might be clues in there that are going to help us send us in a direction that we might not have looked in before, just based on something you said in your history. So if you use the hopper, your entire history goes in there verbatim the way that you type it in. So before you hit submit with that system, print out a copy, attach it to the bag, and that will keep it from getting mixed up if there's other stuff in there. And then you seal the cooler up with a little packing tape. Seal the cooler up, you put a UN 3373 biological specimen sticker on there, and then you fill out your UPS form depending on what system you have in your office, and then you call UPS for a pickup. In most places in New York, UPS ground will get to us the next day, so just use UPS ground. Don't ship on Friday because we don't work on Saturday, so it would just sit wherever over the weekend. The goals here are to make sure that the carcass arrives in as good condition as possible for us to look at to see if we can, use it for diagnosis, and to make sure that nothing leaks out of there and freaks out the UPS guy. We had a really good UPS guy for the past couple of years, but he's moved on, and the new guy is not so good. He's a little squeamish. We did have a case back when those anthrax letters were going around, where the coolers would come in and we'd dunk them in a big vat of disinfectant, let them soak, pull them out, and then we'd let them dry, and then we'd send them off. And this one, as coolers get old, they get cracks in them. This one had like disinfectant and water in there from the procedure we were using. And the UPS guy was moving in, and he got some water on his hand, and the anthrax stuff was all in the news, and he went right to the emergency room. I was concerned that he was exposed to anthrax, which resulted in some memos, and then we had to go through some special training so we wouldn't do that again. All right, any questions about shipping and packaging?
Sorry, just quick. So you said with like the CWD heads, we make like the kits up with zip ties. You said you don't really like the zip ties. Would you prefer that we?
For the CWD heads, if they're wrapped in the diaper and the pad, it's not so much an issue. But we prefer a knot's better.
Okay.
Zip ties work, it's just not as good. Stuff can leak out of it. You just can't get it tight enough.
The problem
Because
is
the
that
twist, untwist.
some
with
of the
zip tie.
cutters, they leave a lot of neck on the head.
Yeah, sometimes there's like no bag left because
There's
you
not
got
enough
Yeah.
bag.
more neck than head
Right,
sometimes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So use your best judgment. As technicians, you're super smart, and you got all these workarounds. You know the goal. The final goal is to have the head come in with not a lot of juice spilled out anywhere. So whatever you can do to achieve that goal is likely good.